I'll
Right.
That's our problem.
tear it down.
The moment we get the state get their nose into our
You didn't even have
concentrations of nitrogen in the river, not changing, not gonna change with what we haven't done enough.
Right, 'cause everything
This
we're doing
is-
is doing this swapping.
This is enough. You add this to that, it was determined a long time ago, it would make us a difference in the river. You leave it out.
Thank you.
The state's gonna measure out,
Okay, you guys, it's 2:00.
so you gotta start
my
thinking
name wrong.
about progress.
I'm not gonna bring that up.
Yes, you
but
should.
can I fix it?
You should bring it up.
Fixing this, fixing that, fixing that. None of those. Not as
Excuse me,
We're after 2:00, please, gentlemen.
please.
Inspection.
Right here. Tag out.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon. This is the Mashpee Sewer Commission meeting, and we are convening it at 2:00 on Thursday afternoon, November 21st, in Wacoit Meeting Room at the Mashpee Town Hall. It's being broadcast live on Channel 8 and on High Definition Channel 1072, and being streamed live at mashpeema.gov. So, good afternoon, everybody, and may I have everyone silence their cell phones, please, and we'll stand for pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and as we customarily do, we'll have a moment of silence. Okay, thank you, everybody. May we have, I hope you had a chance to review the minutes of the meeting from October 17th. And if there are any corrections that you would like to see, I do see that there's one, that we did have an absent member last time, and so we'll need to correct that. Joe Lyons was absent. And other than that, I didn't have any other corrections. I don't know if any of the other commissioners did.
Hearing none, I move that it be accepted with a correction.
Spell my name correctly in the correction.
Okay, one other correction is the spelling of Commissioner Castaneda's name,
Last name.
last name. Is there a second to Mr. Toole's
I'll second it.
motion? Thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, are there any members of the audience who would like to express public comment? Please come forward and express your name, and you have about 3 minutes. Your name and address, please.
Yes, Susan Dangle, 762 Katuitt Road. Just here to give you the exciting news. I think Ashley's going to give you an update, but shortly we should be receiving the Diagnostic Pond Study Management Plan for Mashpee-Wakeby Pond. And Mr. Ed Eichner will be presenting the findings to the Select Board. I don't know about open meeting law or joint meetings or whatever, but I think it would be wise to have some representation from the Sewer Commission at that meeting. I think there's going to be a lot of good information that we'll all learn about that. And I think that's it. I did get some exciting news from Falmouth that they are going to actually submit. They received some extra money at Monday night's town meeting. They're going to have some extra money, and they are officially, with Mass Tech, submitting an application to the state for the urine diversion provisional study. And it sounds like American Standard is about to come out with a urine diverting toilet that will be made in America, and American Plumbing, I think all the other units right now are European. So I think it's really going to be taking off. They have a long way to go, but they're still going to be looking for Mashpee Sandwich residents to take part in this study.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next order of business is our new business and hearing a sewer construction monthly update from Sandy Tripp from GHD.
Is that on? Can you hear? Is it on?
Think so.
Yeah, bring
Okay.
it up to your mouth, I think, if you bring it up a little bit higher.
How about now? Is that better?
Ah, that's much better.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Let me get this geared up. Ah, it worked. All right. So, as usual, I'm here to talk about the Phase 1 construction and its status. I'll go into some more details on it than I normally do and also look ahead to Phase 2 a bit. Let's see. Starting with the treatment plant, a lot of activity has taken place at the treatment plant over the last month. They're preparing for the MCCs, which should arrive first week in December. That's good news. So they've been getting ready for the winter, and they've been getting ready for testing, because once we get the MCC in, then all of the equipment, well, the equipment is wired, but they can start terminating at the power center and get things powered up. That means we can start testing equipment, and that means we can start going through startup activities. And I'll go into more detail on the startup activities a little bit later. So what you see there is one of the electricians terminating the brains, the PLC. They've also been working on the site. They've, if you go out there, you'll see that the roads are paved. They were paved last month, but they've actually gotten off of the parking area and starting to park on the road so they can recover some of the landfill site. The fencing is up, so we have some security at the site. And they've also done some plantings. Big improvement this last month was putting odor controls covers across the outside exterior process tanks. You can see this is the actual process tanks. Before, there used to be some wooden handrails up so people wouldn't accidentally stumble and fall into a tank with no water. It's not a good day if that happens. So no longer need those because we have covers on the tanks. And of course, these are odor control covers, so they'll be keep confining the odors of the wastewater into the tank and then drawn out and into the odor control treatment. We also have covers over the MLSS tank, the mixed liquors, suspended solids tank, and that's on the right-hand side, and the flow EQ tank, as well as the distribution boxes, both the secondary and effluent distribution boxes. The biofilter tank, which is one of the odor control tanks, that is now covered. Last month, I think I showed you the seashells in it, so now we've got covers over it. Now I know what you're looking at. And the carbon unit is being wired up, so this is all good progress. Around the preliminary treatment building, as you recall, there are 2 buildings on site. They've been pulling wires. You can also see that there's some hydroseeding in front of this building and off in the distance, so we're trying to get some plant growth out there, some grass growth. This is the HVAC system within the preliminary treatment building itself. And in the process building, again, pulling wires, terminating equipment, and they've made some architectural improvements as well. And actually, this is a picture outside the process building where some of the workers are parking now. The permeate pump room, they are cleaning up this building, both buildings, but there's still a lot of you see coils of wire and so forth, and that they're not cleaned up yet, but they're getting there. Also note that the lighting is in place. It's powered by temporary power, but it is powered. Process building also has mechanical room. You see that the plumbers have been on site. They're active. Right now they're insulating the piping in there. So it used to be a lot of copper piping. Now it's all insulated. Oops, I think I went too far. Okay. Electrical room, a lot of activity. Remember a month ago I showed you a lot of hanging wire. Now it's all nicely terminated. Not all of it, but we're getting there. Still a blank that on the left-hand picture you see the pad toward the forefront of that picture. That's where the MCC is going to go. Also seeing some architectural improvements. The tiles in the bathroom. Fixtures are in. We actually had running water. When I walked by with my reflective vest, it turned it on, so it works. So we're getting some finishing touches in there. As far as the collection system, both Phase 1 and 1A, just a reminder, the green areas are Contract 2. That job, the northern part, it's all linear work, meaning it's all piping underground. That job is done, basically. They might be taking care of a few punch list items, but they're going into their warranty period. The orange area to the south, that's Contract 3. There are 2 pump stations associated with that. Those pump stations are on hold for now until we get the plant up. And the blue area is Contract 1A, the alternate rebid project, and that construction is off and running. So let's talk about 1A. They're setting manholes and a vault at the Brewster Road pump station. They placed gravity sewer on Brewster Road, worked their way up into that little neighborhood. And next month, they're going to be installing gravity sewer in Harwich Road, continuing down Harwich Road towards Strawberry Avenue. Then they'll be moving to Truro Road, Dennis Road, Chatham Lane, and they will continue to work at the pump station site itself. And here's some photos of some of that work that was done last month in October. The valve vault and the pump station. You can see the installation at the the pump station site. So the wet well is the round structure toward the right, and the square structure is the valve vault. The first manhole, there it is, right there on Brewster Road, and the gravity sewer at Brewster Road. So they're off and running. Taking a few minutes to talk about money and cash flow. This is the plant job. You can see we're getting toward period 27 pretty quickly. That's the contractual end of the project. We have received a formal request for a time extension. Once we know the exact date and get that finalized with Town Hall, we will share that with you. But the time will go out a bit. They are currently 96% basically expended in time and about 90% expended in budget. So they've done a lot of activity over the last month to get ready for startup. Contract 2, as I stated, they're basically done. So you can expect this contract is going to land below budget, below our bid price even, which is a good thing. Contract 3, a little bit of work being done as they get ready to start up those pump stations. And next month, I'll try to get you a cash flow for Contract 1A. I had some questions asked about startup and testing, so I thought I would take a few minutes and go through that for everybody so that you understand what's going to be happening at the plant in particular over the next few months. Testing requirements. How do we know that this equipment will run and operate as specified? How do we know it's going to treat? Well, the testing requirements are outlined in the project manual or specification book, and this is part of what the contractor bid on. And specific testing does vary by equipment. And the majority of equipment and features are inspected and tested on this site. And I'll go through some of that. But this is the first part of a table that just says the type of testing and inspections that are needed. You see performance affidavit and shop tests and field tests and manufacturer's equipment certifications, certifying that it was installed correctly, that they're happy with it. It's also the preliminary field test, all these testing, how much is expected from the manufacturers, whether you need an O&M manual, whether there's extended warranties, is there an acceptance test, and et cetera. So that's the first place they go. And then the specifics are throughout the project manual. At the plant, we require shop factory testing for some equipment. Some of it is non-witnessed. A good example are pumps. They have to either have a model that has been tested in the shop or the pump itself. For the size of pumps, it's the models. It's not witnessed. Most equipment is tested at the shop. We do have a few things that are witnessed. Or factory acceptance tests are witnessed by the engineer, and these are primarily the PLCs, the brains of your plant, and the panels. We want to make sure those panels are built correctly. On-site material testing, there's concrete that's tested when it's it's inspected, of course, but it's all signed off on. Pipe pressure testing, compaction testing for soils before you build anything on it. Asphalt placement testing. Those are all monitored by our on-site personnel, and records are kept on site. There's also installation testing, point-to-point testing for your wiring or your communications, and mega testing of your wiring. There's special inspections being done on the structures, and those records are also kept on site. So the records for your shop tests and your factory testing, when your manufacturers come out, those will show up in your O&M manuals. We make sure they're done. And then your on-site testing is we keep those records at the trailer. Now, going through testing and startup, we require certain steps as equipment hits the site. First, a preliminary field test. That is somebody's, usually the manufacturer, that table will tell you, verifying that the equipment is installed and it's adjusted and aligned properly, so they don't start up a pump that's not aligned correctly and maybe damage the equipment. There's a functional test that proves that the equipment meets specified design performance. For example, a pump, you want to make sure that it's pumping on its curve. Okay? SCADA programming is then done. We are doing the programming GHD for this project. We will, that programming is done, but it's got to be tested out. We can't do that till the equipment's powered, so we coordinate with the contractor to get our programs loaded up and put them through their paces.
Can I ask a question? So on the PLC testing, the factory acceptance testing, can you hear me? Yeah. The factory acceptance testing is done where? At site or at the factory?
For the PLCs, it's done at the factory.
At the factory?
Yeah.
So how are you going to connect all these systems that are supposed to be tested?
All we do is we check that. I've never been to one of these, it's not what I do. But they go and they inspect the panel before it leaves the site, and I think they simulate things at the site. Once it gets on site, we require the contract to do what's called a point-to-point test to make sure that they're landed correctly. They'll do it as an intermediate test without us, and then we witness a final test.
Okay.
And that way, if the program doesn't work, we know it's not with the wiring and the connections, it's with the program.
So who is signing off on the design?
Our instrumentation folks will sign off on that things.
So that's GHD?
That's GHD.
Not you, Jared? Why is that?
Why is what?
Why is the design should be by the owner, right? Signed off by the owner, right?
No.
No?
No. No. We're the engineer responsible charge. They accept it when they pay for it, and at the end of the job, when they do their final payment to the contractor, that's their acceptance of the work. And then it goes into a warranty period after that as well. Okay, so once we know the equipment's running, the SCADA programming is working, DEP will require what's called a clear water test. That means we test the entire plant, but not with wastewater, with plant water or clear water or something. We run water through the system to make sure that alarms, when they triggered, that they go off. Obviously, we're not showing that we're treating. We're showing that the mixers are mixing and the pumps are pumping and everything that needs to happen happens. That alarms are received. And they do a pretty exhaustive test, and they will witness this, especially for a greenfield site like you have.
We find clean floods that way.
Huh?
We find the clean floods.
Yeah.
In other words, where we have problems, it's not going to be pollution.
That's right. That's right. And we put it through its paces before DEP comes out. Our goal is to not have comments. Okay. System demonstration test follows that. We operate each system demonstrating the various modes of operation. Actually, that would happen before the clear water test, so that we show that those systems, be it the HVAC system or the membrane treatment system or the preliminary treatment system, we make sure that they operate as systems. And then we can start up. So we're going to be introducing wastewater to the system over per the contract, a 90-day period that will allow the MBR units to get acclimated to wastewater flow and start growing their bugs and establish a biological growth. That's a 90-day startup period. That's followed by a 30-day, that's really a performance period. Then we do a start, and we're going to be seeing how they treat, make sure that they're treating. That will, the membrane manufacturer will be heavily involved in that. Then we have a 4-week startup period, which demonstrates uninterrupted performance under the control of, for the first 2 weeks, the contractor, although I'm sure Jared is going to want his operations staff really under controlling because you are treating wastewater, but the contractor is going to be right there. The next 2 weeks is under the control of the town. If something happens, we start the time over. But you will be treating wastewater during this period. Any questions on that? It's kind of detailed, but that's what we go through. That's what it takes.
It's kind of detailed, but it's quite exciting to see that we're at that stage.
It is.
And I can hear the excitement in your voice.
Yeah, I like this stuff. Okay. Timing. Startup is anticipated for the spring of next year. It's based on the arrival of the MCC. I noted it's coming the first week in December. As Jared says, we'll believe it when we see it, but when they give you a date, that means that what they're dealing with is shipping, not manufacturing. Contractor has requested time. They haven't asked for any money. So as far as I know, they're not asking for any extended overtime or anything to do with this time extension.
And the only time extension then was on the plant. It has nothing to do with collection.
The pump
Collection's all
station,
completed?
contract 3 will need a time extension as well because we don't want to start up the pump stations and have those pumps sit. That's not good for the pumps. And again, we anticipate time, not money.
This is a lump sum turnkey contract, right? This is a lump sum turnkey contract, correct?
It's a lump sum contract for the most part. There are some unit items in it like paving, but most of it's lump sum.
So even if there is a time delay, we shouldn't expect a cost increase, right?
No indication of it. As far as I know, no.
And I think, Cindy, it might be important to say during the time delay, we're not talking like an additional 6 months. It's the difference of early spring, late spring. So it shouldn't really impact people that much. I know last
It's
time
the
we said
spring is what
delay.
what we're targeting is the spring.
Yeah, so we're still in the spring time frame, which is what I've been saying for a while. It's just, it's not going to be early spring. It's probably going to be later in the spring. So we're still in that same time frame. It's not like the last time where it was like, oh, we got to push out to December.
Yeah, because I had gotten a question from a resident who lives on Shipwreck, which is in the first group of residences, and he and his neighbors are working together to get a contractor together so that they can begin to marshal their funds and their costs and being able to figure out when. So what we can tell him is to say, the sooner we know once the next bit of equipment is installed, we'll have a much better idea of
Right.
when specifically we can tell them.
Right.
But right now, it's a plan for spring, late spring.
Yeah,
Sometimes-
and it's an important discussion because it's not a light switch. It's not like you can just go flick and all the properties are going to be online. They're going to come in over time. And that's why there's a 90-day startup period to allow that flow to start accumulating. I will note that if, and this probably happen, what they're going to do is put it through preliminary treatment and then send it to the flow EQ basin and store it until they have enough flow rate to support the biological process. If that tank fills up, then the town is going to have to haul the wastewater off-site to another plant for treatment. But it allows everybody to start getting hooked up to allow enough flow to accumulate the flow rate that you're going to actually be able to start these membranes and show treatment. And you don't need 100% of your flow to do that. Okay. Any other questions on phase 1? Okay. Phase 2, I think last month I reported that we hit a big deadline with the SRF submittal. we are advancing the design of the plant improvements and the pump stations and the linear work. It's all ongoing. We've also started the, I call them third party. The OPM is reviewing the 60% design plan, so we'll be receiving comments. So we're not giving them everything at once. We've gone through 3 of the 6 contracts right now, and we'll soon be presenting the 3 others. So they've got some reviews going on, and then when we get their comments, we'll go over them and incorporate them and respond to them. Again, we met that major deadline of October 11th. That was key. Future milestones looking ahead. Right now we're beginning a pre-qualification of contractors for the plant. Because this has an admin building, it's got a lot of architectural work in it that requires what we called filed sub-bid subcontractors. We're also this project is worth over $10 million, this piece of it, the plant. So we will pre-qualify it. It's actually a good thing to go through because when you open bids, you're going to know the people who bid are qualified. The actual bidding of those 6 contracts we expect to be in late winter of 2025. The contract execution, when you have all of those firms under contract, will be the deadline. That's a hard deadline of June 30th, 2025. And I expect we'll be beginning construction on phase 2 in July of 2025. Okay, a lot of work coming up, a lot of fun. And that's basically what I have.
We had talked about getting the critical path so that we can monitor the, important activities from a schedule
You did.
standpoint. Yeah.
And because they have a time extension and town hall I don't think they've even been presented. If it's been presented, it wasn't me that did it. They haven't given us direction on how to bring that information out to the public. I didn't feel comfortable sharing the actual schedule here. But they've been maintaining a critical path schedule since the first month of the project, so it's 2 years in. It's a pretty simple schedule now because most of the work has been done. But we do maintain it. I don't even have it with me to show you, but we do maintain it, and I'm happy to share it with you.
Okay.
Maybe next month.
Thank you.
Can we confirm this will be available on the website for the public to
What?
view what we've just witnessed?
Oh, this presentation will be on, that Karen, your wastewater department has it. They have it right now, so.
They're prepared to put it on the website.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well done, Sandy.
Thank you. Beautifully done.
All right.
Are there any questions by the commissioners at all of GHD? Again, thank you for being our partners. I don't want to say partners in crime, but partners in getting this project off the ground. Yeah,
We're gonna have wastewater.
it's pretty exciting. Okay, as we move into the next bit of new business, there were 3 different areas that you were looking at. Were you going to talk at all about the overview of the sewer projects and the next steps? Or that was what we just heard?
Jared, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. So the next steps is, so right now we're still looking at phase 3. We're trying to do the discharge permit. We did just recently get back from the DEP. Please correct me if I'm wrong. It was that letter I just received, and it had to do with, there's 2 steps in getting a groundwater discharge permit. One's the technical side. The other side is the, what's the term I'm looking for? It's the technical side, which is usually the hard side, but we've gotten through that, and now
There's a groundwater report, and then there's the actual permit process, which
Yeah.
has a public review period. That is to support phase 2. So probably 3, 2, but you need it
Oh,
for
that's right.
phase
And
2.
then we just did the site visits for phase 3, possible either siting a plant, recharge areas. We toured the what they call the back road site. We also toured the PFAS facility the Air Force has in the town that is closed, and they've offered it to the town as a possible place to put a site. So we've been doing a lot of those site visits.
So, excuse me for just a second. So you're talking about the direction that we'd be going after Phase 2 is done?
Yes, this is.
Okay,
it's-
so do we know what
future.
areas? what
So the
future-
area that has been talked about with the town manager previously is we're looking at the western side of town, because the only question we had asked during last year's town meeting was, when are we going to do the testing and monitoring of what the work we've done so far and how it's impacted? So we're going to use this opportunity, once Phase 2's built, we're going to start going to the other side of town, do that testing and monitoring while we're doing that project, and see how much more work we have to do back on this side of the town. I think it was, when I was at the meeting, it just seemed like a fair ask. So we're dumping so much money into this side of the town, but we haven't even started to address the other side of town, the other watershed. So those are the areas we're predominantly looking at. We're also looking at, like that Pimlico Pond Road or the North Mashpee Wakeby Pond site. One of the first hurdles we ran into is the land that we've identified to possibly put the facility and recharge if it was open space conservation land. It was one of the concerns that was brought by a staff member here in the town. After doing our research, we learned that, well, one of the questions was, there's a town bylaw that says any land that was taken for tax purposes cannot be disposed of by the town unless going before a town meeting and having the voters vote whether or not it should be considered conservation. When it was brought to us, it was more confused than that. They said, oh, if it's taken by tax, it's automatically conservation. That's not what the town bylaw says. It says that it's only if we dispose of it. In this case, we're not disposing of it, we're trying to use it. It was part of a subdivision, and therefore it was open space designated and deed restricted. After doing research, and there's a master law and case law, when you do a deed restriction for conservation, unless you put it in perpetuity, it has an or you have a specific expiration date, it's for 30 years. After that, it expires. This property has been in this state for 36 years. And it's currently under the select board. So therefore, it is an eligible piece of property to use, but it's also very topographically challenging. So it might not be a spot that we can use. But that's all the stuff they're trying to evaluate right now.
That's all part of the initial evaluation?
Yes.
That was funded?
Yes, and it's funded, and it was through the nitrogen funds that we got from the county. That was just released.
Okay.
So, but again, like I said, the focus has been more on the west side of town. One of the issues we're also looking at is that with the current watershed we're working in, Pompanesett watershed, it's roughly 1 million gallons per day we can put on our site. And looking at projected of all the areas we're gonna have to eventually bring in, we're gonna consume that total flow just in the Pompanesett Bay area. So the west side of town is most likely going to be another facility in order to get the Wacoit Bay. My tongue tie. The Wacoit Bay is probably going to require a separate facility just because we don't have the recharge capabilities at this time that we've identified in the Pompanesett Bay. So we're just trying to identify all those spots. Also, just continue to look for other ways that we can integrate Sandwich, but I think you're going to get more on that with IMA discussion. I'm going to have Ashley talk about IMA. It's one of her areas that she's going to be handling within the department. IMA and the permitting process. And am I missing anything? Sorry, I had better notes, but my computer decided it needed to shut down and reboot, and it took over a half hour for it to happen. It was still working as I was coming up here, so I couldn't print nothing out. First, it just wouldn't let me print, and that was the result. So
right now, just to come back to answering the question about the next steps, we've got so there's going to be there are some plans now for looking at the groundwater discharge and continuing through the Wacoit Bay watershed. We're all set with the Pompanesett Bay watershed?
no, we're not all set there. We were just that was what Sandy was correcting me on. We just got a letter so we can get the additional flow for Phase 2 in the Pompanesett.
Okay.
And then we're going to start looking more on the other side of town is where our focus will be, and then we can start that. Are we going to see any improvements? How much nitrogen is being removed? And we'll be installing 3 additional monitoring wells, Sandy? Yeah, 3 additional monitoring wells so that we can get that data.
And that will tell us how much nitrogen is being removed as
Where are
the
you
plant gets
planning to
started
put
up.
those monitoring wells?
There's a map, and it's approved by the DEP,
Asher's Path area.
Ashes
Down the
Path,
downstream
and one upstream.
and one upstream.
Yeah, one upstream of the Ashes Path area and two downstream.
They're there to to give some assurance that the treatment, the sand beds aren't contaminating your water.
Yep.
That the treatment's being done at the plant,
Good.
which is important. I believe you also are going to start
Was this a
monitoring
state
some of the
re-
water bodies to see
Is this a
the
state
impact.
requirement or just good engineering?
That's a state requirement.
Okay,
It protects you.
yeah, understood.
Yeah.
So this Wacoit Bay area, that's going to be in a separate treatment facility then?
Most likely. I mean, it hasn't been 100% confirmed, but we know that looking at projected all the properties we're going to have to bring into Pompanesett, since we're going to the other side of town, we don't want to just suddenly bring all that flow over here and then go, crap, we don't have enough flow for the Pompanesett side. So they're trying to do all those calculations with what needs to be, still tied in.
That was calculated in 2015 in the master plan.
So
This is not a surprise to anyone.
Correct.
You're going to have disposal on the west side of town, period.
Yes.
Whether we process it there or not is an issue, but we're going to have disposal area. So could we keep going?
And that's where we do the cost analysis. Is it cheaper to just lay the pipe back and forth across town, or is it cheaper to bring the treatment over to that side of town?
so
Okay.
our budget was based on a separate treatment plan or using the existing one
So there hasn't been a budget set
for phase two?
for phase three. For phase two, it's just on the existing treatment plant, additional equipment. So have you seen the plant yet? Have you been there
Yes.
yet? Okay, so they've added the future expansions to the equipment, so it's adding that equipment to get those tanks running, and the admin building is what's gonna happen on the property there. Which, one of the additions to that building is we're gonna try to do a state-certified lab inside the actual building, so we can save money sending things out and actually generate revenue by doing other people's testing locally.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So then the next thing, I guess this will come back to you, Jared, to talk about the possible approval of the grinder pumps for Sea Oaks. Thank you, Sandy.
Yes, so we do have Jill here. You can come on up, you can, actually, if you want to take a seat.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Jill. Could you give your name and address?
Yeah, so I'm Jill Campbell. I work for Barkin Management. I'm here to represent Sea Oaks Condominium, which is 195 Falmouth Road in Mashpee. So today I'm here because so I've been the property management of Sea Oaks since the beginning conversation, so for many years of the septic to sewer project, and we're excited. We're part of phase one. We're 111 units, and so we have our main already installed throughout our property, and through that process we've narrowed in on a contractor. We're about to sign a contract with that particular contractor. Part of that scope of work was the assumption that the grinder pumps were supplied by the town. And through just the process of trying to figure out generators attached to those grinder pumps, it was disclosed to us that there was no documentation indicating that the town was in fact producing or providing those 6 grinder pumps for us. They're the E1 grinder pumps. And so that was a surprise to myself and to our owners. We were part of the February 16th meeting in which the betterment was approved for $690,000. And through that meeting, I came up and spoke, and within that video, I sort of went back to say, like, where is there documentation that shows the town, in fact, did tell us that they own the grinder pumps, and besides just verbal items that we've had prior, that particular meeting, a specific question was asked to the then town engineer, Ray Jacks. And so it's around like, I don't know if you guys have to see the video to prove it, but anyway, it's around minute like 21 of February 16th commission, in which I specifically asked Ray Jacks, in the $690,000, which was what was approved, by the way, are those 6 grinder pumps included? And if so, are they included to be installed? Was the specific question. So that was what I asked. His response back was, the pumps are not included in that total value, and it would be difficult to tell you that because the town will be providing it to you at no cost. We would be telling you that we are charging you for something that we are giving to you for nothing. So then I confirmed, so you are going to drop the pumps off for us and then will install, and the answer was yes. So based on that, it has always been our belief that that was in fact what was happening, and so we've been asking for a specification on the grinder pumps, just so that we can continue our process. The original proposal that the contractor gave to us that we're moving forward with includes them making the installation, the connection, but the grinder pumps being provided. Based on that, we have already issued an assessment to our owners, because we all know this is of cost to them. And so they've already started paying towards their assessment as it relates to our final connection in the spring of 2025. And so if we then have to add these grinder pumps on, which the goal would be that we would not, obviously, because this was not our assumption, that would just be additional cost to our owners. So I guess I'm here today just seeking the commissioners to just consider voting in documenting that those grinder pumps are in fact purchased by the town and installed by us.
This was, we went back and looked at the, I don't have an answer for you, is where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went back and we looked at the policy, and the policy that is published is the one that only deals with single-family dwellings.
Right.
It doesn't deal with condos. So we'd need to get a clarification to whether or not what was stated in a meeting is whether it's then binding. So the issue is, who purchases the grinder pumps? I'm clarifying from you.
Yes, please.
Who's purchasing the 6 grinder pumps, who's then going to install them,
Yep.
and then who's going to maintain them once they're put in. And so you're looking for the town to purchase them, you will install them, and then we would maintain them?
I guess I'm looking for clarification on all of that.
I think we all are.
Yeah, I think we all are, because it's my understanding that as a single, and again, I guess we view it as we're 111 units, condominium units, but technically they're individual, and we're going to have to pay for those individuals' septics to be pumped out, just like a single-family home would have to be. So our hope is that you would treat us fairly and similar to those single-family homes and provide to us what you're providing to them.
Well, the goal would be to try to be as fair as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And then staying within whatever policy, or whether or not we have to consider a different policy for the multiple dwelling units. So Jared, did you want to clarify something with that?
Yes, so a couple of things. So the own, operate, install, we've learned in phase 2 for SRF to reimburse the town for these grinder pumps, we would have to own, operate, and install. That's in phase 2, we already know that. So phase 1, the promise was made, and I've been trying to do all my research, that originally it was just the town was going to purchase and provide them, homeowners were going to install, and then the homeowners were going to be responsible for the maintenance contracts. One of the things I don't know if everybody remembers when I first got here, I advocated that we take over the maintenance and not have the private, because they're not going to break down for the first few years. People are going to pay $1,000 a year, and they're going to go, why am I paying this? They're not going to get those contracts signed, and when those pumps do fail and sewer's going down the road, it's my picture that's in front of the paper saying that we had a problem.
Yes, but the big issue right now is who's going to purchase them.
Right.
for
So I did look through all the documentation. In January, you guys did vote in the policy that it's single-family dwellings with a simplex grinder pump. That was in January. I did look at the video, and in February 16th, Ray Jack did say in exactly how she just read it, verbatim is what was said. The only question I had was it his authority to say that? It could have just, I don't want to speak to somebody that unfortunately can't be here to defend himself. So I think it might have just been a mistake or a preemptive answer that should have been clarified better. Only thing I do caution, and I spoke with the town manager about this, is the only thing I caution is just setting precedents. I'll leave my opinion to myself unless specifically asked.
Are there any comments?
Yes.
Okay.
It's gonna go nowhere unless someone sticks their neck out. So what I'd like to do is stick my neck out and say the town should confirm that we will stand behind Ray's commitment to provide the pumps at no charge. And I do this because it's a matter of fact. It exists in a thing, and it was witnessed by a number of people, and we still have it. Now, the question on who installs them and the question on who maintains them all needs verification. So it is the requirement of our group to make a recommendation, but to the town manager's office to make the commitment to what the town is willing to do, and you would have to take the responsibility of confirming acceptance or rejection or whatever. But I'd like to say, I think everybody here is in the feeling that, yes, we should do the pumps because we made a commitment. We got to stick with it. And the management of the pump, putting them installed, you make a very good point. The person who buys it should install it and should maintain it, because then there's a continuity of liability and it keeps them running. So we need an answer from the manager. And we are not a management group. We are a recommendation group. So we can take a vote today that we think it's in the right direction for the town to do all three, but that's merely a motion on our part, and we need to take a vote on it. And then it will be up to the management of the town to accept or reject it and give the...
So I just want to make sure I clarify so I handle this right. So there is a motion to make a recommendation.
No, we haven't made a motion yet.
Okay,
We're
okay.
just still in the discussion phase, but
So-
then, go ahead.
We've been working on we're already gearing up to handle the maintenance. The town manager is well aware of that. We're gearing up we're actually trying to do it's no longer called an RFP, it's called an RFR. They changed the name on me today. So we're doing the RFR so that it includes having the operators that we hire for contract ops to be able to maintain the system. So that part is clear. It is also clear that in phase one, it is the homeowner's responsibility, regardless if it's the condos or the homes, they're going to install them in phase one. So ultimately, I think the motion just goes on whether or not we will honor that statement by Ray Jack and install the units.
No,
Sandy,
it's specifically to purchase them. So
excuse me, to purchase them. Thank you.
Install, and maintain. There's three different components of it.
We will purchase them. Sandy, we had that, so we also had a bid out. We have to redo the bid. We did obtain some costs for duplex chambers, rough estimate costs.
Well, I will say also that the bid procurement includes 5 years of maintenance by the vendor. So there's a 5-year, whoever wins this job, they're also going to maintain these for 5 years. Unless it's abuse by the homeowners.
But what I'm more specifically asking was, wasn't there a cost for 4 duplex units was approximately 50?
We haven't. I do need to talk to you about that. We do have a budgetary cost for these.
Of course.
Yeah, around I'd say $50,000 to $60,000.
Okay.
Well, I think where we are at this point then, are there any other comments from the commissioners? Because we need to then entertain a motion. And if you want to make the motion, Joe, if you want me to paraphrase it, and then we'll have discussion after that. So do you want to make the motion? or do you
Could
want
I
me to
ask
make
a question before we go to the motion?
Well, it belongs in discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll never get finished today.
No,
Okay,
So we
so
make
I
a
agree.
start, have
It's just a
discussion later.
clarification from something I heard you say, and I
Mm-hmm.
just want to make sure that I got it right. You said something associated with phase 2, that you were committed, or there was a plan to purchase, install, and maintain
Yes.
such grinder pumps at similar facilities?
So in phase 2, I don't think we have any condos, but the intent in phase 2 is we learned through the SRF that if we owned them, operated them, installed those specific items, and we actually met with the town attorney yesterday just to work out easements and how this would all go about. So that would be the intent in phase 2, that part of that $96 million is going to own, operate, and install grinder pumps.
But again, they're
At the
for single
locations.
family, they're not for commercial. Or
The SRF didn't specify that it had to be single family. If they were to reimburse us we just have to own, operate, install. I didn't see anything, language that says it has to be a simplex or nothing. It's just if we want reimbursement. So that'll be in phase 2, but in phase 1, that's the only hangup is,
The question,
yeah,
that's the question.
that's the
It
question.
seems fair in phase 1 that we would also get the purchase, install, and maintenance as well, though.
Well, hold on for just a second. So do you want to make the motion?
I think we should make a motion.
Yes, and then we can have the
we'll
discussion.
continue this discussion, otherwise we're out of control again.
Exactly.
You know, and everybody will start thinking about a picnic next week somewhere,
No,
you know?
make the motion, please.
So I'm making the motion that primarily, because we've already committed ourselves to half of this, the motion should be that Mashpee will buy, install, and maintain the necessary grinder pumps for Sea Oaks. I think that's as simple as I can make it.
Is
If I
there a-
may,
That's the motion.
okay.
That's the motion.
We can
Is
change
there a
it,
second
we
to
can
the
do
motion?
I'll
anything.
second the motion. 'cause
Okay,
I agree with
so now we are open for discussion. And just to repeat the motion, it's a recommendation to the town manager by
Right.
the commission to recommend that there be the procedure to purchase, install, and maintain the grinder pumps for Sea Oaks.
We aren't building a procedure, we're making a
the
definitive.
Recommendation. We're making a recommendation to the town manager for this. Okay, we're open now for discussion.
I would say that there might have just, one thing you might want to alter is just to make them in line with everybody else in the phase 1, that we don't install it. We just purchase and maintain. Phase 2 is where the install comes in. We got to remember, like, like you're starting to say about fairness, well,
Hold on a second.
SRF will change the rules.
Hold on a second.
Yep.
You
Absolutely.
just said something that leads us down the legal path of problems. We buy it. They install it. It breaks down. Who's gonna,
We maintain it. So we're just purchasing and maintaining, not installing everywhere else. The install still falls on the
chances
homeowner.
are the purchasing agreement, you started to say something to this effect, includes 5 years of maintenance or something. These grinder
There's
pumps.
an extended warranty on these pumps included in
And
this
who
package.
gets the warranty?
It would be, if,
The people who buy it.
the warranty would be gotten by the town and handed over to the owner who picks it up. Or you can keep it if, it's up to you.
Yes, we keep, we dealt with warranty situations in my last town. I'll use E1 as the example because that was who we had in the town. Even if it's warranty, they're far away. They don't physically come out and pull the pump for you when it goes alarm. We still do a certain amount of work, and even in the warranty, there's certain things that we still have to maintain. Stators have to get replaced or rubber things. So that's the stuff we'll take on. If we determine that it's a warranty item that needs to go, then what we do is we package it up and we ship it to E1 to get done. So that's the 5 years. So we'll still maintain what at the, I guess, operator level of maintenance. Anything bigger then goes to E1. So that's what we would commit to take in phase, or what we've committed in phase 1. It was the whole SRF in order to get the reimbursement. That was phase 2 specifically, and that could go away the next time we go out because the state could decide the next time they come out with the SRF requirements that we're not going to do this anymore, and not like it. So I think with the whole, what's fair for phase 1 of phase 2, we're kind of at the whims of the state. If the state decides next year they're not going to fund it, then we don't want to commit to own, operate, install every phase. So I think with phase 1, the original plan was town purchases, they'll install it, but we'll take it back over in the maintenance. I think what the motion should reflect.
Is there any other discussion?
I would move
Go ahead.
that we make that change.
Okay, so the modified motion, do we now have a modified motion? Is to then make a recommendation to the town manager that that the town purchase, that the owners would then, that the residents would then install, and that the town would then maintain the grinder pumps for Sea Oaks. So that would,
Was it before Sea Oaks or for phase 1?
No, it's Sea Oaks.
This is specifically dealing with Sea Oaks. And I think you have to take a vote on the motion before then you can vote on the
This is
Final.
an amendment.
I mean, the amendment, and then you can vote on the motion, just a reminder.
Okay, can I call the question then? And we'll vote by
You
individual.
call the amendment, not the question.
Okay. I will call the
Amendment.
question on the amendment. Those in favor? Aye.
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 Unanimous.
Are you also voting?
I didn't know enough about this, so I didn't have an opinion, so I wouldn't,
Oh, so you're abstaining?
yeah.
Okay, so we have 4, and 1 abstention.
What about you?
No, me, I also said yes. And it's 5 and 1.
What's
Three,
five?
4, 5.
5. 5 yes and 1 abstention.
Yes.
So the motion for the amendment carries.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we need to have,
Do you want to call the motion?
yes, now we're going to call the question for the motion to make the recommendation to the town manager to do the purchase, and the maintenance of the grinder pumps for Sea Oaks. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Abstain, and one, so 5, 4, and there any, none for, no, none against, and 1 abstention. Okay, so 5, 4. So that would be our recommendation to the town manager. Where it goes from there is out of our hands, because we don't make the policy, we don't make the decision at that point, but we will make the recommendation.
And I will notify you once we get a response. I'll send a letter.
Thank you, Jared. I appreciate it. Thank you, commissioners.
You're welcome. Thank you, commissioners. Okay, so now we have the chairperson's report. I'll keep it short. We did receive a letter from the Cape Cod Commission that gave us, they essentially were saying that they agree with their ruling on the moving forward with the North Wakeby plan to continue to investigate a cluster system or some type of system for the North Wakeby, saying that it is part of the Mashpee Wakeby Papaneset watershed, and they're just simply in agreement that it is part of the 208 plan and part of the 2015 plan that would address nitrogen removal. So it's just simply Cape Cod Commission saying that they agree with this being a possibility, being able to continue with this. So I think as we're moving forward, it's nice to see that we're getting buy-in by the commission, we're getting buy-in as we move forward for addressing our issues of nitrogen removal through the whole watershed. I also want to just give a thank you to Karen Leslie and to Jared and Catherine for revising the website one more time and for moving it forward to make it much more resident friendly. And also Karen found this wonderful map of the wastewater recovery facility, and that now is on the website. And Karen has done a remarkable job in keeping our minutes together, even though we don't have a recording secretary, and also doing the wastewater administrative work, and also keeping the website up. And a kudos to her and a thank you to her and to the wastewater department group, including a newest member, Ashley, for helping us stay afloat with the other parts of what the commission is required to do. I have one request of the commissioners. I received an email from the town manager's office to be ready for the annual report, which is going to be due in February, and I will send around to you an outline of some of what I see as where we've been over the last year, and request your input for helping me to shape the annual report for the next year. And the other one I had was a question from this resident on Shipwreck Drive, and thank you, Sandy, for answering the question of when residents can begin to think about hooking up. We don't have a definitive answer for them, but we do have at least some general answer. I will be back in touch with the resident and find out whether or not this helped to answer his question, and the group of residents who are beginning to get contractors together so that they can save their money and get prepared, because they're getting prices from the contractors, and they want to go in as a group. So they're asking for some timeframes if they can do that. And then and also I want to say thank you to Jared, because you addressed the issues of the fence around the Summerwood properties for the grinder pump, and that was done.
No, so they were supposed to do it Tuesday, and their dig safe ran out, so they're doing it tomorrow.
Okay, well, just so that we get recorded that this wasn't, again, an issue that was requested by residents in this first phase of the process, and thank you for your diligence on that. And now listening to the comment that was made about the Mashpee-Wakeby Lake study, I also had a chance over the month to sit in on a meeting that the Joint Base Cape Cod had presented about a Shumat Pond, and there'd been some discussions also about Johns Pond, and then there's a grant now that's supporting Santuit Pond. And I'd like us to talk about the idea of suggesting to the town manager and to the select board that there be a freshwater group that's established to address all of the ponds in town, rather than having all these different components of things that are happening with Johns, Ashumet, Mashpee, Wakeby, Santuit, and to have it all under the purview of one commission, one department, one board, if at all possible. So is there any thought about making that recommendation and moving forward with it, or do you want to have more discussion about it?
This recommendation would go to the town.
It would go to the town manager and to the select board. Because right now, there's a Mashpee Wakeby Lake Management Committee. And they are only focused in one specific area on this one pond. And I'm just suggesting that if we're looking at comprehensive management of clean water in the town, why not suggest that there be a freshwater initiative, since there is one for Falmouth that was started, there is one in Barnstable, and there also is one in Orleans, where they have freshwater initiatives, so that the people who are concerned about lake water or pond water are all addressing and discussing and sharing information with each other. It's not a commitment on our part, but it is a commitment to clean water across the region. Jared?
I'd like to make a recommendation that maybe at next month's meeting, month be good enough, to maybe have Ashley, who's our water quality specialist in our department, maybe put together an outline of what something like that could look like, and what their scopes and goals are, and maybe bring it back to the board for your endorsement, and then maybe forward on to the town manager. I think something a little bit more detailed and outlined would be greatly appreciated by the town manager.
I think that's excellent. That's a great suggestion. Thank you. Comment?
No, I was just thinking to define where it would be housed and, all
And
that
how it would be
stuff,
all
yeah.
put together. And certainly because you've worked for so many years in water quality and with the ponds specifically, it would be great if we had your purview on where we might go with addressing the water quality around the ponds, and how that might look like with a commission or a group that would be addressing the concerns.
Yeah, and it's a necessity, and it will go in line with the Cape Cod Commission's freshwater initiative and their projects that are rolling out, because they're going to be rolling out a lot of informational packages to the residents and freshwater communities.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so that's all I have in terms of my comments. And so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which would be to hear from an update from the wastewater superintendent.
Thank you. So policy review, we haven't worked nothing in the last couple of weeks. It's mainly just going through and making sure, just trying to finalize every time I quoted a CMR or something like that, that it's accurately quoted. So it takes time, and every time we dig into it, we're like, oh crap, we forgot about that. So we're finalizing that up now, and that should be ready for vote real soon. My next bullet point was about variance procedures. So we did have a question, and we met with the town attorney, myself and the Board of Health, regarding how the variance process works in the flow neutral bylaw. Fortunately, in the case that we were originally going there for, it is implied in that bylaw that if they're not in the sewer area, we don't have to review any projects that might need go through the ZBA in order to get approved. Because that was one of the questions, the way it was originally read at face value, it felt like anytime somebody was going before the ZBA, we would have to review it as the committee, but yet it had nothing to do with the sewer district. So that was a question I had, and they felt that it was implied, and you wouldn't have to do it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start making the steps that when somebody is within a sewer area, what that process will look like. Normally, if they're in the sewer area, they're going to be connected, but what if it's the phase 3 area? Once we define that phase 3 area, but somebody wants to build a house now, what is that, process going to be before it goes in there? So we'll finalize that, but I just want to let you know we did get an opinion from the attorney, and it is automatically implied, so no changes have to be made. One of the things I'm going to be asking for is to set a public hearing to set our rates for sewer use. I have with me would you mind taking one, pass it on? Thank you. This is a quick from the Abrams Group. We've been working on the rate study. So like I said at the last meeting, I had just recently been informed that the town's intent was to subsidize 100% of the operation at least the first year. This made this process much easier because it was hard to try to project how many customers would connect when. And especially with it falling right on a fiscal year change, it started to make it difficult. So I think the key point right now that we got to look at, and like I said, this is just a quick example, and more or less the layout is what we'll use, but we need to, at the next meeting, decide what are we going to charge for usage. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to take a look at it, explain a little to you if you have a question, but your main focus should be on that top line where it says set rates and base charges. The intent would be that on that first column, number 1, that first tier, everybody pays regardless if they use the first flow or not. That'll be our base charge. After they exceed, in this case it's 10,000 gallons. Once they exceed that, for every 1,000 gallons, they would pay an additional, in this example, $15 per 1,000 gallons. And then if they go up to 40,000 gallons, each gallon after 39,999, every 1,000 gallons after that would be paid at $20 per 1,000 gallons. This is just an example. Matt has developed a spreadsheet. He will be here for that public hearing. So if you want to play with this, yes.
This is solid stuff, okay? There's not a criticism of this. It's always the presentation that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
What are people going to see and what are they going to hear? 9 out of 10 people can't read this table.
Correct.
So this is a crash. What we need to have covering this, so they have to go through it first, is a statement as to what's happened in all the communities around us. How much is Falmouth paying, how much is Barnstable paying, and where are their break points? And that can be put in like 2 or 3 short paragraphs on a single piece of paper that comes on top of this. Then it gets people's minds where they should be. Okay, the typical house uses 20,000 gallons. The typical house on the next page is going to cost somebody X. That's what you need to do. Don't
Did
put
that
this
already.
out.
We weren't here for that meeting, but we did do that already, and I did break out what they were. We will represent that at the night of the meeting because we want to refresh everybody's mind. This is just letting you know, like, when you go into the meeting, so you're not sitting there looking at the board with everybody else as we're going through the process, and you be confused. So this is just like a kind of a layout. We will then resubmit that information that we collected when I was asked to do it before. What we had the MWRA, all the towns in the Cape, and some towns on off Cape. On Cape Cod, it's like $1,285 was the highest, and that was in Provincetown. I think the lowest was at $400 and something a year. I believe that was Barnstable. See, I didn't bring it with me today because I wasn't planning on talking about it. But so we will have all that laid out there and what the average is. If you look at the MWRA, it's about $1,400 a year.
But don't,
Average. So we'll have that available so you guys, when you're looking at those rates.
But at this point
you
in
just
time-
broke it out in a very concise way. The average on the Cape is X. The low was this, the high was that. And once you go further than that type of explanation, you get bogged down in your own manure.
Right.
And you're stuck. and you lose control of the meeting, and you don't communicate any information. Because those are the only things that are critical, and you gotta find a way to do that. So just keep it as simple as you can, with as few words as possible. If you can't do it on a half a page, don't do it.
Correct, but
Figure out a way to do it in a half a page.
But the goal right now is for us to set a time for the public meeting.
yes.
That's all you need from us. Does that, so that's where we are.
And I do recommend our December 19th meeting.
Okay, so you're recommending that we hold a public hearing on December 19th?
Yes, that'll give us time to advertise appropriately and get the information out.
Can you run the meeting with us first, and then do it on the 19th for the public? That way, maybe we'll have a little smoother transition.
I think in order to keep the integrity of what the public hearing is all about, that hearing, is that we want you to go into that open-minded, and if somebody from the public wants to make a comment about what's too high and what's too low, that you take that into consideration. I think if we tried to do it beforehand with just the commissioners, even if it's public or not, the one thing I do not want to do is try to direct you to what I think is best. That's the opportunity for the public to be able to get up there and speak their mind and have you basically be pure and not have any. I more or less wanted you to see the format, and I deliberately kept us on the low end, so it wasn't to direct you towards a higher value or anything. I just want you to see the format and then let the community decide, come and give an opportunity to say, hey, this is what I can afford and this is what I can't afford. And I would like for you to not be
Biased.
biased. Thank you.
But I think what Joe is suggesting is that we have a preview of just the overall facts and not the conclusions.
Okay, like the handouts, like these are the rates, high, low, average.
Yeah,
I can
just so that you have
pull that back out, yes.
Yeah, just,
That way, you will be comfortable when you're in the public light. You're not comfortable now, even with us.
I'm not comfortable with what?
Next time, second time, third time around, you get comfortable, okay?
so our next meeting is scheduled for, I need a calendar.
Not the second. No, it's the
And we would be,
5th.
December 5th?
don't fog the issue as to how we get the gallons.
Okay, so we would not ordinarily have a meeting on December 5th, but in order to have this so that it's ready to go on the 19th, we would then schedule a meeting on the 5th to listen to the presentation, non-biasing presentation about the rate study, and then have the public hearing on December 19th.
Excellent.
Does that fit with everybody?
And as long as I can get the most, because we're going to have to put the ads in the paper starting next week.
Well, then why
during
don't we say that
Thanksgiving.
we'll have the public meeting on the
Thank
19th?
you. That's what I need to vote
That
for.
doesn't have to stop. I mean,
Yep.
so, I would like to make a motion that we make a recommendation for a public hearing on the rate studies for December 19th.
Move.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Toole. All in favor? Aye, okay. So we're all set for a public hearing on December 19th. However, we will have a sewer meeting on December 5th, and that at that time we'll be able to entertain any questions that might come up where if we don't understand what the presentation, where we're going with it, then it would be clarified also for any residents as well.
Excellent.
Okay?
I can do that.
Catherine?
Can I?
Yeah, please use your microphone.
Oops, sorry. Just a question. When that would be published next week on Friday?
So we would get it in by Wednesday of next week, and it should be on that Friday next week. It'll be the first one.
Okay, will we be able to get Karen to post that on the website too?
Yes, it'll absolutely be posted on the website, yes.
Thank you. Okay, the next, are there any other issues that you wanted to raise, Jared? Then, go ahead, sorry.
So, you actually already talked about the fence, IMA. I'm gonna actually, since one of Ashley's functions is the IMA and the water quality, I'm gonna hand it over to her and let her give an up down of what's going on.
Great,
The IMAs.
thank you.
So for those of you, I
Can you
don't know
please
if
use
there's-
your
yeah.
mic? Thank you.
For those of you who don't know, the IMA is, and we have a small group that meets regularly from the different municipalities within the watersheds we share. So it's primarily the towns of Falmouth, Barnstable, and Sandwich. So I'm just going to go through the different watersheds and the groups that we've met with in the past few months and what their updates are. We met on September 30th for the Wacoyet Bay Watershed IMA meeting. And we had an update from the town of Falmouth. Amy Lowell, the Falmouth wastewater superintendent, presented a preliminary plan to address Falmouth's nitrogen contribution to Wacoyet Bay and some of the key aspects of that plan. Those aspects include sewering and IA systems. The focus on Wacoyet would be in the upper Quashnet River watershed area. And that identifies 1,500 sewer parcels and 1,600 IA parcels to meet TMDL for Wacoyet. This plan assumes IA systems will achieve 10 milligrams per liter nitrogen reduction, though not all will meet this standard, and additional measures will be needed for the proposed systems. Regulations and implementation for Falmouth's plan to require IA systems for newer and expanded properties within 5 years. So that's all properties. The Board of Health is engaged in developing these regulations currently. They are collaborating with other towns. They are assuming Mashpee will reduce its nitrogen load in its entirety for Wacoyet Bay. And they are working with Sandwich to offset their contribution. So basically direct payment from the town of Sandwich for Wacoyet Bay. Sewer expansion in the town of Falmouth has been challenging due to groundwater discharge limits. They are focusing on dense areas in Wacoyet Bay, such as the South Coast Shores area. They are also exploring their outfall pipe plan and the proposed discharge into Nantucket Sound beyond the eelgrass beds. So the outfall modeling was conducted with USGS, and they're studying the potential groundwater impacts. Data collection is ongoing, and the permitting is anticipated through 2028 with completion by 2032. So they are definitely seeing challenges, and that's what they're going for in the town of Falmouth. That is something unlikely that the Mashpee will be exploring just because of its uniqueness and permitting challenges for that particular project. Their next step is to conduct some borings and permitting and environmental review for the final impacts report. And they're expanding those IA systems within the outfall area as well. They're looking at township comparisons. They're having some legal issues with public versus private. So they're looking to other models that other municipalities use on Cape Cod to see what they can do there. An update from Sandwich. They are having PFAS disposal challenges, as we all will in the very near future. They're working with Converge at Joint Base Cape Cod and with the Army Corps of Engineers to secure disposal acreage due to the PFAS contamination. The finalized Wright and Pierce grant assessed the disposal capacity for the town of Sandwich. EPA restrictions are preventing an increased effluent disposal flows in areas contaminated with PFAS. So the Sandwich Wastewater Management is exploring Joint Base Cape Cod continually, and they acquired 90 acres to meet 100% of their wastewater disposal needs funded through the WIF money by bypassing town meeting approval. The focus at Sandwich is the school treatment systems. They are in need of some help. Some of them were originally permitted for more capacity, and they're only utilizing a small percentage of what they are able to treat, and they're looking to become compliant with Title V systems and connecting other areas to the school potentially. The updates are underway with an amphidrome system at the Sandwich High School. The town of Sandwich also has a 4DB project that is coming up, and they're reviewing right now within the Popponesset Bay watershed. And it's going to take a lot of review to see what they're doing there. They're proposing a wastewater treatment facility for that 40B project. And the town doesn't propose to collaborate with them in the use of, but they know that they have to come up with something for wastewater treatment within that site.
Is that mandated that they have to come up with something?
They're in intense review process right now. It is going to be mandated that they do something on the site. So as far as the town of Sandwich and their working with the town of Mashpee, we are partnering with them in the Plymouth Pond project and collaborating with them. We are waiting to hear from our engineers in regards to percent share, how much reduction for the town of Sandwich would be seen for sewering that area, and if we can expand outside of the town of Mashpee bounds for Plymouth Pond. The cluster system that is proposed. We were unable to meet on October 30th or this month. We're just waiting for those calculations from GHD to present to the town of Sandwich. But looking good so far with the Chapter 97 land and what Jared has found. So we're going to be pursuing that. Not much from Barnstable. We haven't heard much, but Sandwich is very involved and Falmouth has been very involved. With the Wacoyet watershed Sandwich for both Papaneset and Wacoyet. Most recently, unfortunately, the town of Sandwich had a death at their select board level, and they had a number of wastewater related items on their agenda for their town meeting. And that town meeting will be rescheduled for some time in January and February. They will not be delaying till the spring just because of the topics that are on that town meeting warrant that they want to see passed. And those are pretty big items. They're looking for a land purchase, a WIF surcharge increase, and funding allocation for an additional $2 million to the WIF, the wastewater improvement funds. Also on that is the school treatment system upgrades that they need to finalize with the town meeting vote.
Are they considering just one of the schools? That's because there are 3 schools within Sandwich, right? The 2
Yeah, there's
elementaries.
multiple schools that they're looking at. I'm just going through the Sandwich Middle School is their focus through upgrades that are targeted for 2025. The Forestdale Oak Ridge School also is applying for Title V permit and upgrades. So it's multiple schools in the town of Sandwich.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you hopeful? I mean, this is an opinion, really. In terms of now, the IMAs seem to be moving along quite well with our neighboring towns, beginning to come together with us so that our watershed treatment processes will be more effective if, in fact, we're partnering with Sandwich and Falmouth and hopefully Barnstable at some point. What's your opinion so far with where we're going with it?
I think we have a very good outlook for Papaneset and what we've been doing within the watershed, and Falmouth being so proactive in our direct abutters to Wacoyet. I think we're in good shape. We just have to get to that west side of town and start working with them to start sewering some of those areas. With the new regulatory changes that, Health has done and our requirements now, we're going to start to make a dent in future development as far as requiring IA. Wacoyet is in need of help. So, the town's focus on moving to the west side of town in phase 3 and looking at those sites is vital to sustain the water quality we have. It is declining at an alarming rate in some of the upper areas of Hamlin, Jehu, Quashnet. So it's time.
Indeed. Thank you so much for your
You're
work
welcome.
and for the group that you're working with. You've made substantial progress, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Just as an aside, a friend of mine had gone shellfishing and brought some oysters to me, and brought a pile from Wacoyet, and they were all black and muddy. And the ones from another area were like clean and shiny and white. And although they just needed to be washed and scrubbed a bit more, they're still edible. But you could see the the difference in the water quality and what people are dealing with and just digging, and just in everyday life. So, thank you again for your work. Are there any comments or questions from the other commissioners? Any questions? Well, I have nothing more to say or to offer, and again, thank you so much for your diligence and for your hard work, for both from the wastewater department as you've expanded, and you, and please give our thank you to Karen, thank you to Mashpee TV, and thank you, Select Person Colombo, for being here today. And thank you, GHD. You've been our partners. And I go back and look at the records and I see how many years you've been our partner, and thank you again for the work as you're keeping us moving forward. I will entertain a motion then.
So move.
Second.
And that was for all of the commissioners to now be paid? Is that what the new motion was? We are all volunteers, but thank you for the motion to adjourn. Seconded and agreed? Okay, all agreed.
Agreed.
And thank you very much. Thank you all for being here.